Bueno, muy buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos al Paraninfo de la Universidad de Guadalajara. Es para mí un placer presentar el día de hoy a Graham Sheffield. Él es director de artes del Consejo Británico. Como habrán visto ya en su programa, ha sido director de artes del Consejo Británico desde el 2011, donde es responsable de dirigir y desarrollar las políticas artísticas y programas globales alrededor de las operaciones del Consejo, con gestión directa del equipo de artes de Londres. Fue director ejecutivo de la Autoridad Distrital de Cultura de West Kowloon, en Hong Kong, donde dirigió el desarrollo de una de las más grandes infraestructuras jamás imaginadas. Pero además de todo, no solamente para esta presentación, en donde estaremos, les compartiré cómo lo haremos. Graham va a hacer una presentación de aproximadamente 20 minutos de lo que son sus labores dentro del Consejo Británico y posteriormente abriremos a preguntas y respuestas esta plática. Pero no solamente es un funcionario, la carrera de él es particularmente es bastante particular porque no solamente está del lado de la cultura, sino que él estudió música, es músico, ha sido pianista, ha sido baterista y la música corre en su familia porque también tiene un hijo que es músico y que se graduó de la Universidad de Norwich en Inglaterra como músico. Entonces tiene las dos partes, la parte del funcionario y la parte del artista, que se conjugan en una sola misión. Por favor, un fuerte aplauso para el señor Sheffield.
Thank you for that write-up. That's great. Most of it's true. First of all, thank you very much to FIM and to the authorities here for inviting me to speak. I only knew I was doing this quite a short time ago, so forgive the slight imperfections in this presentation. But I thought it was important, that we heard some music, so some of the presentation will actually be with some music. But also, I just wanted to share with you some of the ways that we work in music at the British Council, because I think it's a unique positioning. And I just wanted to suggest give you some examples of what we're doing so that you can maybe think of how you can engage with us more in the future, how we can help you develop this initiative, how we can do more work together with producers and presenters across the Americas, of course, and in Mexico. Just a bit about the British Council. I mean, we are the UK's international organisation for educational opportunities, English learning and cultural relations. And we work in 110 countries and growing, connecting millions of people with the United Kingdom through programmes and services in the English language, the arts, education and society. And I run the whole of the arts bit for the UK. As Francisco said, I'm a musician. I've spent probably too long in the profession. I've been around a long time, but music has always been part of my life, and it means a lot to me. I trained as a classical musician, but obviously I've got interests in world music, in jazz, in rock and pop, so it's very central to my own existence, really. And if I don't go to at least a concert every week, I feel slightly starved, as though I'm not eating properly. In terms of the arts, at the British Council, we believe those are the most effective means of engaging with others, and we've been doing this work since 1934. And our work in the arts involves the best British and international talent. The picture I've started with here is an image from Celtic Connections, the very big festival in Glasgow that links in Scotland, which links international and UK musicians in the fields of music that have a link to Celtic culture. And if you go online, you'll see they've just announced their lineup for January 2015, which is an extraordinary lineup of musicians, including quite a lot from the Americas. So we help really to increase audiences for international work in the UK and for UK work overseas. We bring artists together, support the development of skills and policy in the arts and creative industries. And so we try through this work to ensure that culture in its broadest sense plays a vital role in connecting with and understanding each other. Next slide, please. So, yeah, that's not a musician, that's a saint. This is an image from an exhibition which I was opened on with, well, actually Prince Charles opened it on Monday, and I was there, and my colleagues were there. It's the beginning of the year of UK in Mexico and the year of Mexico in the UK, 2015. A very exciting point in the relationship, I think, between the UK and Mexico. And hopefully you'll have time to see this show in the next few months, Saints Alive, which started life at the National Gallery and is presented in Mexico City by the San Ildefonso and the British Council. It's a great show and really rather remarkable. I think it deconstructs religion and reconstructs religion in a series of extraordinary kinetic sculptures which you can play with and interact with. I think it will go down well in Mexico because I know you have an advanced sense of humor and an extraordinary sense of the macabre, and I think this will satisfy both those natural instincts in the Mexican public. It's going to be the biggest ever showcase of UK in Mexico and vice versa in the UK. And the celebrations really will run from January. This is a curtain raiser, connecting new connections in arts, education, science, innovation, trade and investment. Next slide, please. The British Council, so we work across in the arts, all the art forms, visual arts, film, theatre, architecture, design, creative economy, literature and music and drama. And it's the music, obviously, I'm going to talk to today. And it's such a powerful universal language, but not needing verbal communication, it brings people together in a unique sharing of emotions and intellect. And it can involve sort of total immersion in a group experience, but it's also about the development of individuals and the individuals' self-respect, persona, confidence, and creativity. And I think it can tell others in a way no other art form can about the culture and society that the music comes from. And it provides a starting point for conversation and intellectual searching, research, and so on. So it's fantastic means of delivering our cultural relations agenda of building trust and understanding and friendship between the music of the world. This short talk, there are some slides, and it'll show you examples of the kinds of work we do in our music program in showcasing, in partnership, in connecting, in society, in youth and education, in skills, and in traditional and new music. Probably a unique positioning for any single organization across the world. And it all comes under what we describe as our arts vision at the British Council, which is new connections. So everything we try and do has an innovative side to it, even when we're looking at older music and classical music. And that vision is interpreted by our teams in different ways around the world. So we work with artists, organizations, producers. We develop partnerships to deliver a wide-ranging program. We work with our local teams in Mexico City here for their expertise on the local context and developing partnerships on the ground. And it's the linking of that with our UK team that makes our program work. And so we use those local international connections to match and support UK partners and artists with their counterparts abroad. Next slide. Oh, sorry, yeah, the previous one, thank you, is an example of one of the showcases we work with. This was Womex. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. And last year it was in Wales, and we had a big input into bringing over international producers and presenters and musicians to Womax and linking them up internationally and with the UK. The next slide, again, is a similar The Great Escape. This is a picture from Brighton, the Great Escape showcase last year. So these are some of the UK festivals and events that we work with closely at the British Council. So we bring festival directors, promoters, producers, programmers into the UK to experience this, these kinds of concerts. And I suspect that's a little bit, I don't know much about FIM yet, this is only your second year, but I think that's obviously, there must be some similarities in what you're trying to do. And what I'm trying to learn out of this week is how we can engage more with you here in Guadalajara in the years to come. So we've worked recently with Celtic Connections, you've seen the slide there, Showcase Scotland, the Huddersfield Contemporary Music Festival, London Jazz Festival, the Great Escape, the Association of Independent Festivals, and the Radio Academy through Selector, which I'll talk a bit about in a minute, which is our award-winning UK music radio show. Next slide, please. I mentioned traditional and new folk music, which folk music in the UK used to be considered rather fusty and old-fashioned. It's now, of course, a very cool and innovative music scene around the world. And we do this program called Folk Nations, which is a 3-year program exploring traditional and folk music in a contemporary context. So we've worked on collaborating partnerships between musicians and artists of different traditions and styles. For example, in India, in Jodhpur, and in Celtic Connections, we've brought traditional and contemporary music artists together, resulting in performances in South Asia, Scotland, England, and Wales. I saw one of the concerts a couple of weeks ago in Delhi, where we had a musician from Wales, one from Scotland, one from Ireland, one from England, and 2 musicians one from Bengal and one from the other parts of North India, and they'd worked together in a residency to create a whole portfolio of new work. And I think this is a really interesting way of developing long-standing partnerships. Next. I mentioned education as being one of our guiding principles in our work. The UK is a leader in creative education, community outreach, and in social inclusion. And we work closely with the sector to increase the longer-term impact of our music programs through cultural exchange, skills, and training. And so it's common for musicians who are working on British Council projects to be involved closely in various types of education and collaborative activities, in addition to us sending them to overseas to play. So they'll do creative workshops, masterclasses, professional development, and creative collaborations with local musicians. This is one such example, I think, in Tokyo. I think it's with the BBC Symphony Orchestra musicians who were working in Japan on a tour recently. Next slide, please. This is a project very close to my heart, also in the area of creative education, but with a distinctly social slant and objective to it. It's called World Voice, and again, I saw the launch of it in Delhi. I think this must be the launch, actually, in Delhi last March. It aims to bring cultural enrichment to the curricula in schools of children all over the world and offers teachers new learning tools through music. And the project involves really highly skilled vocal leaders. You can see this guy, Richard Frostick, who's the leader of the project overall, working with teachers and pupils simultaneously, using a lively range of approaches and techniques to deliver singing, which it's hoped will inspire them to use song throughout the school day. So these training workshops are complemented by British Council engagement with key stakeholders in each country, governments, city governments, state governments, local governments, lobbying for recognition of the power and value of singing as a core part of every child's education. And I think it's essential with a project of this kind to try and get a global reach and impact. We're currently active in this project now in 12 countries already, including India, Senegal, Ethiopia, Argentina, Chile, Bangladesh, and Jordan. And we've also just begun our UK teacher training series. So I'm now just going to show you a short clip about the program, which illustrates how children from widely different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, learn each other's traditional songs. If you could play the clip. Oh, that's it. It's a shorter version than I'd expected, but it gives you an idea. There's a rather longer clip. I think they probably thought it just gives you an idea of how that traditional song from the north of England, from Yorkshire, is transmuted in its sort of meaning and impact by being sung by children from Senegal, in that case, and children from Delhi. And the whole thing is going to be a sort of like a molecular interaction of different songs from different communities, they learn their own songs, and then they'll learn other songs from other cultures, and these will be shared digitally and online and through school partnerships and so on. It's a remarkable project because it teaches the teachers at the same time as the children, and also, as we found out in Jordan recently, it has an extraordinary impact beyond the classroom on the parents and teachers and families who sort of buy into the whole project and come and see their children gaining confidence simply through the means of singing. And it's often, I think, underplayed by politicians in every country, including ours, and we have as big a fight, as I suspect you do, to get the humanities and music onto the agenda. Next slide, please. This is a rather different project, and a slice of our program reaching a slightly older target audience, 16 to 30, roughly. I just fall just outside that, as you can see. It's exemplified by a project in the Middle East called Cairo Calling, which brings, it's a collaboration between Rinse FM, a London-based broadcaster, and Cairo-based 100 Copies, which bridges Cairo's Mahraganat, the soundtrack of Egyptian youth culture, and London's electronic music scenes. And so the artists in Cairo receive support to grow, navigate, and monetize their own industry, while UK participants, all sorts of bands I've never heard of because I'm just that bit too old, Code 9, Pinch, Mum Dance and Artwork, and more, gain an insight into traditional and contemporary North African and Arabic music templates. So these sessions in London and Cairo have allowed for creative and professional development, including studio techniques, using social media, marketing, managerial, and event production skills, and label management. In a similar vein, the next slide, please. It's quite a good image, this one. This is, we work with partners to create projects that respond to local environment and context, residencies, sound installations like this, field recordings in partnership with local artists and organizations. So we invite UK artists to work with local musicians, fostering artistic development, community engagement work through creation of new music. So we've done projects like China residencies with the Performing Rights Society, Sound in the City, Super Everything, which is this project with the Light Surgeons, which took place in Kuala Lumpur early this year, and Music City. So it develops a whole range of skills as well, being as an exciting event. And I think it builds curatorial confidence, creative confidence, it spans intellectual and international horizons. And here's a short clip. I don't know how long this one is because I haven't had a chance to play it, but I've heard it before. A short clip of a music video by Grammy Award-winning UK songwriter Imogen Heap. And she created this after a residency, I think it was in Shanghai. Was it? What? Hangzhou, thank you, David. Supported by the PRS Foundation. It's a rather beautiful piece of creative work developed as a result of her trip. Let's just see a little of this. That's very short as well. Sorry. You get the idea. It's a kind of soundscape, sound picture developed by her through her interaction with the local environment and local sounds. I must get them to expand that when I go back to home. Next slide, please. Yeah, there we go. I think this also emphasizes, like the Cairo Calling Project, the power and reach of radio for cultural relations in music. This is a slide from Selector, which is our international showcase radio show for the best new music the UK has to offer. It's a weekly 90-minute program that covers all styles of music, from indie, dubstep, folk, soul, electro, and everything in between. And the show features interviews, mixes, exclusive live sessions from some of the best British artists. And we really present an overview of all that's exciting and fresh and diverse in the British music scene. Estimated weekly audience to be in excess of 3 million, and the Selector is now syndicated on FM to over 30 countries around the world, including Mexico, Colombia, Uganda, Hungary, Malawi, Ukraine, Malaysia, and China. And as you can see, also in Russia, where we did some live club nights linked to the radio show. So it gives us an opportunity to have some presence through the radio show in live club nights in different parts of the world. And uniquely, I think, the Selector is offered both in radio and in English and in kit form. So the kit enables stations to recreate the show in their local language. Just a bit of a promo, the Selector, I hope some of you would know about it, is aired weekly in Mexico through Ibero 90.9 FM. And Ibero uses the kit version, and then their version in Spanish is sent to broadcast on the RMX network every week in, I hope I got the names right, Laredo, Querétaro, Guadalajara, San Miguel y Celaya, and Riviera Maya. So it's quite a broad reach in Mexico for this show. Next slide. Our music, a large part of our program overseas includes major showcasing enterprises, a bit like UK and Mexico and vice versa. They're multi-year platforms, bilateral most of the time, building sustainable relationships, events of course, but building relationships, which is the important thing. And our music program in the Americas aims, I mean, it's biggest in Colombia, Mexico, and Brazil, but we have presence elsewhere. It aims to demonstrate the UK wants to connect with the changing realities of the Americas and the opportunities there, that the skills we have to offer, which are relevant to building a resilient and expanding creative economy in those countries. We want to demonstrate we're one of the liveliest crossroads in the cultural debate, in experimental work, in innovation, and also that we have much to share and learn ourselves on the power of the arts to transform lives and communities. We also look to work in these programs to challenge exclusion, social inequity, and to address issues of conflict. This is a slide from our 5-year program in Brazil called Transform, which includes a 3-year partnership between the Association of British Orchestras and a network of Brazilian orchestras focused on management and incorporating intercultural exchange, professional training and development, education and performance. And the inaugural conference in Belo Horizonte in May this year featured the UK's Young Aurora Orchestra and set in motion to create, the ambition to create through partnership and exchange with the ABO, the orchestra, an equivalent in Brazil of the Association of Brazilian Orchestras as part of our Transform season. And I think we'll be discussing whether there are any opportunities to work on a similar kind of program in Mexico. We're also, since I mentioned the Aurora Orchestra, hoping to bring them, it's one of our sort of coolest young classical bands in the UK, to the Guadalajara next year as part of our performance roster in the Guadalajara Book Fair with Feel, for which we're very honored to be guest of honor country next year. In 2012, we programmed the Venezuelan premiere of Gabriel Prokofiev's Concerto for Turntables and Orchestra, with 3 times winner of the DJ World Championships, DJ Switch, on the turntables. This is a sort of young musicians development project in collaboration between the Sinfónica Juvenil, Teresa Carreño, and Prokofiev and DJ Switch. And it was part of an ongoing program in Venezuela with Funda Musical, the latest acronym for the foundation, better known worldwide as El Sistema. Next, thank you. and last example, from just down the road in Colombia, well, it's a little farther away than that. Incubator was a 3-year project that established a community of creative music producers in Mexico, Colombia, Chile, Venezuela, Brazil, and Argentina, all working within the independent popular music, folk, contemporary, classical, and experimental sectors. Rodrigo Sigal, the composer and director of CIMAS, was the Mexican producer. This slide is from the Colombian project called Ondra Tropica, which I was able to see both in Cartagena and later in London, and was produced by Will Holland of Quantic in the UK. And it was part of the London 2012 Cultural Olympiad River of Music Americas showcase, which took the Tower of London by storm in the summer of 2012. Anyway, I do hope some of the examples I've given you have given you an idea of how we work in music. We don't just present concerts or play or have our own orchestra or anything like that, but we work in a variety of ways that link music to a social cultural relations agenda while enabling the UK and overseas music scenes to grow and develop. We've only really been able to scratch the surface, but I hope that whets your appetite for maybe partnering with the UK and developing some relationships with you in 2011, 2015 and beyond. So with all our major initiatives, we seek synergy with the ambitions and aspirations of others. So it's a mutual experience with artists, companies, other public sector bodies, so that we can maximize the impact of our work and the resources. So Mexico is no different. And so next year, we're going to be celebrating heritage diversity through activities such as an arts and disability showcase at the Cervantino Festival. Collaboration in education, science, and innovation will include high-profile higher education dialogues running through the year. Trade and investment will be stimulated by business forums with some of the most senior people on both sides. And also Mexico in the UK will be working to promote Mexican culture in cities across the United Kingdom, supported in many cases by us as well. So I hope that as a result of this and our year and our presence next year in Guadalajara, which will be quite substantial, both in the May Festival and in the November-December book fair, that we hope to build a legacy that will last really well beyond 2015 and increase the already exciting links and friendship between the two countries. And in my book, music in many styles and forms will play a very significant part in that program. So thanks very much for your attention. Maybe we can have some questions. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Graham. Entonces, a mí sí me gustaría mucho, después de haber escuchado todas las actividades que genera el Consejo Británico y la cada vez más estrecha relación que va a tener, sobre todo en el área de las artes, con nuestro país a través de la presencia del Consejo y del año de México en el Reino Unido, el año del Reino Unido en México, que va a ser el 2015. Me gustaría mucho abrir esta parte a las preguntas de todos ustedes, y lo vamos a hacer de una manera muy sencilla. Nada más levanten la mano y pueden hacer directamente la pregunta ustedes a Graham. Entonces, comenzamos por donde quieran.
Hi, my name is Claudia Norman. I produce a Mexican festival in New York called Mexico Now. And my question is, do you have a website where we can see the programming for the festival, in the Mexican festival in London next year, please?
Yes, we do. In fact, you're sitting right behind the person who can tell you most about it, my colleague David Elliott, who's running the UK-Mexico initiative from the Mexican office. He'll be here for 2 years, only just arrived. So if you're very nice to him, he'll share all he knows. We launched the site this week after the ceremonial opening of the program, and over the next few weeks we'll be adding obviously material to it, blogs, information, interviews, all sorts of content. So David's your man. Okay.
Hi, my name is Guillermo. I wanted to ask you, how do you choose in what new ventures or projects you get involved? Because I saw things from the Americas and from other places in the world. And how are these projects handed to you, and how do you analyze them?
It's a very simple but a very complex question. Because, I mean, it's partly, as I think I tried to explain, we know what the opportunities, we try to find out what the opportunities and ambitions are of the UK music sector, and talk about music, and what their international aspirations are, what the aspirations of the major cities in the UK, like Manchester, the big city of cultural renaissance, of Glasgow, of Cardiff, of all the cities and stakeholders around the UK. So we have that knowledge in terms of what they need, not just money, but connections, networks, ideas, who are the musicians trying to expand their international career. And we then try and marry that with our local knowledge in Mexico and elsewhere of the local market, the audiences, the needs of the professionals, but also the wider public in that sector. I mean, it's a fun thing to do. It's sometimes quite difficult because we have to be fair to everybody who's trying to work in this way, and obviously we can't work with everybody. So there's a certain amount of editorial and curatorial choice involved in this. In the old days, the British Council, and we were started 80 years ago, it was very much more of we were more like a UK touring agency. We used to ship things around the world, we used to pay for everything, we had tons of money from the government. And so on. It was very much like an international touring agency for the arts. Now we have to do everything in partnership. So we have much less public money. We're now only funded 17% by the UK taxpayer. So we earn the rest of our money, which we have a turnover of nearly £1 billion. I don't know what that is in pesos. We do it through a massive operation of teaching English and doing exams in English in big markets in Mexico, in China, in India, and so on. And that helps to cross-subsidize the money we get from government and also our increasing work in the arts. So it's a complex way of working. It's more fun because you look for synergies between you and partners and musicians and other institutions. And you're looking more for what we call common purpose. And I think although it's less easy to work in that way, you can sometimes achieve a much better impact by having multiple stakeholders and partners.
Primero allá y luego acá.
Hi, I'm Robert Singerman. I work with Brazil Music and Arts for Brazilian export from the trade office side. I've worked with the French and Spanish and European and the British as well. But my question is really, you mentioned in the beginning of your speech about the universal language of music, and yet most of the budget, you just said, is generated through teaching English. Music with lyrics is not universal because we don't speak all languages. So it seems like some of your programs address that with the lyric translations, and the contextualization, the localization of music and culture in the different language cultures. But I guess my strong recommendation is for the Mexican music in the UK and for the UK music in Brazil, you know, that the British Council and all the different arts councils around the world through IFICA or whatever actually, you know, remember that fact and integrate that fact in all their programming so that lyric translation, legal lyric translation, monetized lyric translations in this digital age is actually a key part of all of our work in culture and in music going forward. So David Elliott or whoever is working with these programs, to me, if there are lyrics and it's not just sounds and the vocals, it's really incumbent upon us to make that information that's in that culture available not only through the subliminal feeling of what they're singing about, but through the translations of the meanings of the word. You know, we're in a incredibly beautiful building, and I'm sure there's some information about where we are that we can understand without simultaneous translations. So that it's more of a comment than a question, but I would like to hear your perspective on that.
I think it's a very good point. You're right. Of course, as soon as you put lyrics in, it's not a universal language, though. I've sat through many evenings of contemporary music, opera and song recitals and things where I haven't had a clue what was going on, and actually I get a lot out of it. So I agree with you, really. You only get a partial understanding without the full translation. We work very hard on a big translation program in the literary field, and obviously translation will form a very big part of our presence here in the book fair next year, because obviously this is the biggest Latin-speaking book fair in the world, and the whole opening up of that to English audiences and English readers is obviously a primary part of what we're trying to do. And I think it's a perfectly valid point that we should look at that in a musical context as well. So, you know, I think it's a very good point. Interesting enough, we make a substantial amount of our turnover through teaching English, but we're also supporting programs that support enable the teaching of Mandarin and also Arabic now, because we think by us doing that, it actually opens doors to those cultures in a way that helps our overall mission.
Bueno. Hello, Mr. Sheffield. My name is Annette. I am an independent music producer. And as I understand, the collaboration of the state of Jalisco with the UK-Mexico year going on, till this moment, there's nothing musically speaking going on with the state, only film, literature. Am I correct?
Only in literature?
Yes, with film.
With film? Well, no. We're working quite substantially with the music festival here in May next year. Do you want to say any more about that, David? Can I give the microphone?
Sure. Thank you. Yes, well, as you know, the FIL is more than just books and literature.
Yes.
There are 9 consecutive nights of music and dance.
I know.
There are exhibitions in museums. There are film screenings. There are children's programs. So there's much. It's like a festival within a festival.
Yes, I'm aware.
And also we'll be working with the Festival de Mayo in May, where the UK will be the guest country there as well, and that will be music and theatre and dance. So it's much more than just books.
I know. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of the festival. I just wanted to take advantage of this moment to let you know that I am currently working with Michael Nyman. I'm producing his 70-year concert in Bellas Artes in Mexico City. I've produced music with him with popular Mexican musicians, and we have a huge project that we're going to pitch for the state, and we would love it to happen in this event of Mexico-UK, so if it's possible for a minute at least to exchange cards, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Afterwards.
Okay.
It's nice to see business happening within the context of a Q&A.
¿Alguna otra pregunta que tengan ustedes?
Cultural exchange programs for students. I don't know, where do our cultural exchange programs start? It's more, I mean, in the education field, we put a lot of emphasis on student mobility and give opportunities for foreign students to come to the UK and vice versa. And I think, I'm not so close to this, but I know that there was a higher education agreement signed on Monday between the two governments, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, David or Paulina, but it's an agreement to recognize qualifications, higher education qualifications between Mexico and the UK, between the universities. Is that right? That's right. And I think that sort of thing will facilitate a much freer movement of students between the two countries, whether it's in science or cultural affairs or other disciplines. We also run for artists and professionals who are trying to develop their careers internationally from the UK, small grants up to £5,000 for artists to travel to different countries and work. I would love to see in these major seasons, and it won't all happen at once, but I would love to see Mexico, maybe Cultura or maybe other organizations offering in partnership with us similar opportunities for Mexican young artists to come and work, not necessarily only in the UK, but you know, with the opportunity to come and work in the UK and do a project and build links. So it's work in progress, but we've got quite a comprehensive program in the UK. Now we've also got the higher education agreement. So I think this is a very important part of developing the relationship over the next few years.
¿Alguna otra pregunta?
Hello, my name is Jaramar Soto. I am a musician, a singer. And I wanted to ask, how is the presence of Mexican artists going to be programmed in the UK? How is the presence of Mexican projects? Is there a curator on the Mexican side for that?
I'll give you take that one.
Sure, good question. It's being curated by Cultura with the Mexican Embassy and INBA. So they are responsible for what's happening in the UK, but we're working closely with them and helping them to place events around the UK next year.
I think it's important, I just may say one more comment. I think it's important in a lot of these seasons, we curate and work with organizations to curate and develop some of the program. It's often possible, and in some countries, though we haven't yet developed this with Mexico, but I think we may, to open the program out to other partners who are working in the field, but don't necessarily need money or support, but just want to be under the umbrella and to come into the tent, as it were. So I think there are opportunities for things to grow and develop further than just the curated bits by the Mexican government or Cultura or whatever. So I'd like to see a more Catholic with a small c approach to this on both sides, actually.
En esta parte, bueno, si no hay más preguntas, yo tengo un par de preguntas para Graham que tienen que ver más con una política, con el diseño del Consejo Británico. A la hora, cuando se diseña una política cultural de impacto global, como son las del Consejo Británico, ¿cuáles han sido los principales obstáculos en esta última década?
Wow, that's a big question. Aside from the politicians, you mean? I think the biggest obstacle for me, and of course I've only been working in this job for 3 years. Before I was director of the Barbican, which also had a very big international policy. I think the difficulty for me is to get, it's not so much money actually, it's to get governments and public agencies to recognize the value of arts as a major player in international relations without trying to subvert that to political ends. There is a very mechanical way of measuring impact in all of these seasons and because of the trade and investment side of it in terms of contracts signed, turnover generated, profits made. And you all know, as we do, that, right, we have to make a living through the arts, but the money isn't the only thing. And the value is often long-term through relationships that build over many years, through self-respect, confidence, more tolerant society. These are all very, very important things, but very hard to measure. And we're doing a lot of work, there's a lot of work going on in the UK about how to evaluate the impact of the arts in cultural relations in a more profound way than just numbers. It's quite difficult, which I think is why it's a big challenge, because if it was easy, somebody would have worked out the answer already. But it's to do with prosperity, to do with skills, to do with artists' development, to do with societal impacts. over a long period. And it's not to do with political quick gains. And I think that's the biggest challenge that faces us in terms of our positioning in government. We're not in government, we're aside from government, but we are linked to government. And it's making that case for the importance of the arts in a cultural relations field without letting the politicians run them.
Muchas gracias, Graham. Y una última pregunta para cerrar esta charla. Cuando tienes que tomar decisiones como director de las artes del Consejo Británico, ¿quién gana? ¿El funcionario o el artista?
Well, I have a reputation. I'm sure it's not justified, but I have something of a reputation of being a bit of a maverick, a rebel. I don't like bureaucracy very much. I don't like officialdom. I like to cut through a lot of the crap if I can and get to the real artistic purpose. So I suppose I'm on the side of the angels here in trying to push through that. And if the British Council it can be a very constipated organisation at its worst, but it's also a very highly motivated and passionate organisation at its best. And I try to bring that side of it out and try and move through the hoops and hurdles as quickly as I can without making myself so unpopular with the board that they fire me.
Thank you very much, Graham Sheffield.